Ashley Swartz here. She's the founder of Furious Minds and Red Fury. Ashley, you have a really strong passion for advertising, for media, and for technology. Would you define yourself as digital native?
Yes, and thank you for having me, Laurel. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, because I think that being a digital native is not necessarily about whether or not you were born and raised using only digital technologies and you predated email or not. I think it is about how you think and how you solve problems, right? So my personal experience is I can teach a digital person about traditional media and legacy television and print, but it's very challenging to get someone that has been a career traditional media person oriented around television or print or out of home or how that works, and to get them to start to think in the rapidly, radically disrupted world of digital advertising today.
Yeah, you've already told it's changing really, really fast. There's so many changes. What are the processes at the moment whom you were dealing at the moment the most?
Well, so I think programmatic and automation is the biggest topic right now. And we're talking about, we use the word convergence, right? TV and digital and et cetera, online video. I mean, interestingly enough, I've been in technology now for, 20 years. And we used the word convergence in mobile 15 years ago, right? The word convergence has been around for a very long time. I think now more than ever, it's actually real. And there is demonstrable proof points of convergence, whether it's the fluidity of content from one device to another and the fact that we're now becoming a mobile first sort of audience, or it is actually, the fact that traditional copper systems of distribution are being replaced with fiber, right? And now things are over the internet. But I think automation is driving a lot of that, and I would also say that the economics are changing radically as well. So the flow of dollars, how people make money, what the new business models are, is also part of the conversation.
So you have to find what you're earning money. So how difficult is that if this is changing so fast?
Well, I think what's happening is that it's interesting. One of my business partners came up with this phrase, like simplify or die, right? That's not an original phrase, but it was for a piece of client business on which we were working. And what I'm noticing now more than ever is that everyone is building out. What I'm seeing in a very sort of broad sense is people invested in a part of the ecosystem. Let's take programmatic. Everybody went out and built the marketplace. That is it's the actual algorithms in place where all the transactions occurs, the supply-demand curve meets, you transact at a price. That's similar to the economics of ad serving, right? You pay per transaction, you pay per impression. The reality is those economics, even with tonnage, are not that interesting, right? You can serve billions of impressions. If you're serving them at 0.03 cents, it's not that interesting. So the same thing has happened with marketplaces. So the marketplaces have expanded to first the buy side and now the supply side as well. And what's happening is it becomes additive. And I think that is one of the biggest business issues that we have now, is that it's becoming so challenging to actually figure out what technology you need, whether you're a supplier or a buyer, to actually be able to fulfill your business requirements with efficiency and the highest return on investment.
But are all these trends really important? I mean, convergence, you said, it's a topic for ages. Same with native advertising. What's new about this stuff? Or is it just to find a new hype, to find a new trend, to be interesting?
Well, I think that convergence and native advertising are very different from programmatic and automation. They all share one thing in similar. The similar thing is that one of the challenges we have in our industry right now is language. Everyone uses the same words and they quite often mean different things, right? So that's a challenge for us to communicate as an industry and to wholly move an industry forward and maintain momentum. Convergence is a concept that I believe is real and tangible. So people can use it. It doesn't have any measurable value. I have no emotional attachment to it. The issue of native advertising is really about putting lipstick on a pig. And it's digitizing the advertorial, it's digitizing brand content, etc. It's some way to make display more meaningful, but it's still display. It's just contextually relevant, right?
But still, it's a challenge for lots of companies to deal with it, although it's just putting lipstick on it.
It is a challenge, but the reality is that new ad formats that perform better and are less disruptive to the consumer and provide greater relevance, that's a win for everybody. So I don't think that it's necessarily taking us back 50 steps, right? Automation and programmatic, they are imperative, because the reality is that the business models and the economics of fundamentally the agencies and of media buying are incredibly challenged.
So probably that's also the reason why these classical media, like TV stations, they're so afraid of the new media, digital media, and video content, right?
Well, there's two reasons, right? The first is that in the incremental revenue from digital media right now for these guys is very little, right? And it's a lot of work. And the reality is that it's not very profitable. It's a much more expensive business to serve. So that in and of itself, they don't have an economic incentive. The other thing is that they've been served very well by a marketplace that is not data driven, right? It's not transparent, and digital media brings transparency and real-time data. So they've had a marketplace that has been opaque, and it's served them well, and it's been highly profitable. Growing their digital business potentially will disrupt that and cannibalize it. So there's a lot of risk there for them, and it's about calculated risks. So they're going to move very slowly and with great control and caution when they go sort of in lieu of going brazenly into digital.
Yeah, so they don't want to have the risk. That's why they look at all their data. But can you really predict something right now? I mean, it's changing so fast. Is it not the? I mean, they're looking back at their data. Shouldn't they look more forward?
That's not a question of technology, that's a question of human behavior, right? You're talking about an industry that has been incredibly well served and profitable and has sustained those business models for a very long time. And these guys, because they're mostly old dudes in blue suits in corner offices, and they have no incentive to change. They're 5 years out from retirement. Why are they going to disrupt, in the US, what is a $160 billion industry just for the sake of hanging their hat on the fact that they've embraced innovation, right? Because the reality is that if Rome does fall, it's going to fall one brick at a time, and they're going to rebuild something bigger and better because they have the resources to do that, right? So we're at an ad tech show. If you go to the same trade shows that are for the television industry and the broadcast industry, and you see how they dwarf this, and the size and scale and the amount of capital investment in the physical infrastructure of legacy television, that's enough, you get it. There's so much sunk cost and so much money in it, there's no way in hell they're gonna walk away from that easily. No way.
So would you want them to be more risky, or do you think it's totally normal? They should look at their money, look what happens, and then invest when they're sure?
I think that they should. I believe in calculated risks. I don't think that driving blindly, especially when you're a public traded company with shareholders, I don't think that's good business or prudent, right? I mean, these guys are in charge for a reason. I think that what they need to do is, this is about turning a cruise ship, not deploying a speedboat. There may be speedboats you can deploy in very small, controlled ways, but this is about actually turning a cruise ship, which is a much longer, slower process. So I think it's about calculated risks. It's about thought out investments. It's also about listening to your audience, and if you continue to retain an audience-centric programming or content distribution strategy, give them what they want, where they want it, when they want it, and don't piss them off with advertising, but position advertising so that it's an enabler, then I think that's the win-win recipe. That's why I say it goes back to human behavior. People just aren't typically really good listeners.
You just said that most of them they're guys with their black suits, so would you think the business would be driven differently with more women who have the power?
I think that we are seeing in the US in particular, and I would conjecture with what I know a little bit about some of the programming in Europe, that the female audience is incredibly valuable. So I don't necessarily think that you have to have an all-female programming staff or all-female production staff or executive staff to, basically be a television broadcaster or programmer that reaches a female audience. But I do think that if that demographic and audience segment is valuable to your advertisers, to your paying customers, then having representatives on your team that understand that audience are critical, right? So I do think there's absolutely an opportunity to gain higher ROI. It's no different than, being a digital company or a social media company when nobody at your company is on social media.
Definitely.
It's no different.
Ashley, you have such strong passion for all these topics, for media, technology. I mean, definitely. How does this passion come from? Was there a defining moment where you said, yeah, that's my business. I really want to be part of that change, of this development?
Well, I'm just very blessed because I love what I do. I'm intellectually challenged by it, and I think that what's interesting is what I'm doing now is sort of the culmination of my career, in that, my first life was finance. I'm a business person first, right? I'm very oriented around the P&L. And I've just by circumstance, because I've taken risks, I've kind of moved through the value chain, right? And I'm at this place now where I have the luxury and the great fortune of literally using my whole brain, right? So the way that I get to solve business problems versus the way that I'm thinking about advertising and media, which is nonlinear and non-sequential, and it's very fluid and kind of all over the place. Like the ability to have that duality and that balance is what keeps me so interested. And I think that life is short. I think it was Confucius that said that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And my attitude is, again, it's short, love what you do. And you gotta love the people with whom you do it as well. So.
But I guess you're not working 24 hours a day, probably 20 sometimes. So when you're not working, you're like, what are you doing then?
What am I doing then? I'm an athlete, so I teach spinning, I cycle, I do triathlons. I take care of my body because that ends up being the best way to take care of my mind.
And then the short life is probably not so short, like you said, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes, but I do know that I need a beach and salt water more often. That is what I have learned. I don't have enough freckles. That's what I need more of.
More freckles, I guess that's a wish.
Yes, exactly. That's a wish. So.
Ashley, I would like to know in the end of our interview how digital you are, tablet or newspaper?
Newspaper.
Ebook or paperback?
Ebook.
Online shop or shopping in the city?
I'm going to add a disclaimer there. Monday through Friday shopping in the city, weekends when all the tourists and the Europeans are out, no disrespect, I'm going to shop at home. Thanks very much. Or holiday season, I'll shop at home.
Okay, I see the
reason. The euro is just too strong right now. My city is overwrought with Europeans taking advantage of the weak dollar. It's not fun, I assure you.
Why am I in Cologne?
I don't know.
I should go there as well. CD or streaming?
Streaming.
Reflex camera or Instagram?
Instagram.
Postcard or Snapchat?
Postcard.
And telephone conference or Google Hangout?
Google Hangout.
Google Hangout. So pretty digital. Ashley, it was a pleasure to meet you.
It was a pleasure, Laurel.
I wish you a nice fair. And good. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Congratulations. I'm very excited to see the success you guys have with this. Thank you.